All right, online teachers, administrators, whoever this video may be intended for, I'm going to talk a little bit more about Qualtrics in the education arena. Then I'm going to show you, decided I'm going to walk through a few projects to kind of show you how they're done and give you the level of advancement that's required to do these projects. This project that we're looking at today is what's called a student spotlight. I actually saw someone do something similar to this in a webinar that I was in. And with that possibility, it's a good way to kind of pull information from your SIS, your student information system, and actually use that information to send an email to a parent, guardian, whatever, but have a little form template of what it would look like as far as, highlighting student. That way we don't necessarily have to make phone calls all the time, even though we don't want to lose personalization. We do want to kind of be consistently with our communication. So anyway, let me kind of show you what this is going to look like. The survey itself, let me preview it. We'll go through it. I'm going to use my email address for those of you who need to contact me about how some of this is done. And want some, and then we enter a student's email address. I'm actually going to skip that for a second. So we'll go on. So you can see that it brings in my information, and then I put the rest of my stuff here, real simple if I need to, title, department, phone. And if I had a student's information, it would have their parent email down here. Once I hit next, it's just a place to put a message. You obviously can do whatever you want to do there, and what school you're representing. Now, the reason the school matters is that at the bottom of each email, we have the school logo and contact information, address, phone number, all that stuff. And so we want to kind of have that with some kind of a form of embedded data. But anyway, that's kind of the gist of what it works. And once they hit next, it will send an email to that parent with this, what we call a student spotlight. This is kind of the Qualtrics project. So let's walk through the actual project itself a little bit. As you look at it, we started out with the information here, and this is form field. I'm going to kind of show you there. And we have this. Now, what you see here is what we call um, default choices. So if we go down here and I click on, sorry, not that. If we click right here on default choices, we can pull in information, and this is the information from the actual authentication. We use a double authentication in this one. We will see that in a second, but we use an authentication for the teacher, and then we use an authentication for the student, pulled from a contact list in Qualtrics. And so this is the teacher one, as you can see, first name, last name, and that's what you saw on the front end of that. And we did a little more pipe text here, and those of you that aren't familiar with what that is, just if I hit Rich Contact Editor, I can bring that up and I can do the exact same thing, and I can click on this right here, and it was an embedded data field in this case, and there you'll see we have it listed as teacher and we have student. So we have two different things. So you could do multiple authenticators. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And then under question 2, you can see there's the student information, the same thing. We brought in some embedded data that we have here, parent email from that as well. If there is a parent email, if your SIS may not have that email, that'll be something you'll want to fix. It'll give you a great opportunity to kind of see that conversation as well. And then here is the text entry box that we have, and we have this as an essay type where they could write something really nice if they chose, not to limit them to one line or things like that. And then of course we have a school selection. It's a good idea if you're going to build projects within your district to go ahead and create a default question in your bank that has all of your schools listed. And the reason is for purposes is that as you start building reports and dashboards, it'll give you a consistency of how those are displayed, whether, in this case, you see All Good Elementary, instead of All Good Elementary School being some, All Good Elementary being the others. You don't want to necessarily have those in multiple displays because it's easier to do a dashboard, it's easier to run reports, and down the road there's a lot of reasons, and it's easier to give roles uh, to dashboard access based upon their school. So kind of get that question consistently early, and and I try to just create one drop down or whatever you choose. It doesn't matter there, but create it, put it in your library, which over here you can see that, and that way you can always click right here on the 3 dots and click replace from library, and you can bring that question in. So no matter when you create a question, you can do that. Great practice. All right, so as we go through this, I know we've talked about before, some of you are aware, but there's workflow and there's survey flow. So the survey flow is what we're talking about, how this is going to flow as people do it. So I'm going to go through that. And then the workflow is what happens after survey submitted, more or less. So if we look at this workflow, and we'll kind of walk through it, we have an authentication at the top with a contact, and you'll see that it is an email authenticator right here. And so that's for the contact for the library, and that's a staff. It's coming from the staff contact list. And then I set embedded data after that. That comes from that list. So we want to make sure that we get the teacher email, and it pulls all the stuff from this. And these things are just really all I needed. Didn't need a whole lot. I could bring in more if I wanted to, if teacher uh, state ID, things like that. Then we go to another authenticator. We just skip down, and the survey flow usually works this way, straight up and down, linear, I guess, unless you have a branching scenario, things like that. But here is a contact list. You'll see this is actually all in students, all my students in my system. We're bringing an email, using email as the authenticator. Uh, Same thing here. Then I bring in the data from that actual list, and these are the items I needed: student email, first name, last name, parent email, and that's in our case it's parent guardian. Usually they'll have 1, 2, 3 emails in that one little block, and then we see the questions that we were asking. Your information, and this is just the text that we come see back. So this is just a flow of what we're looking there. Nothing different there. But this next part's important. So now we start branching, what we call branching scenario embedded data, which kind of may not make a lot of sense, but if we branch, as an example, that question about the school, if we select all good elementary, we can edit that condition of what question it was when they selected the school. So this case is all good. I'll create one of this, the branch, and then I'll create embedded data under it. So if it's all good, we want them to use the school logo. And I have all these logos stored in my library as well. And so there's a way to get a link from that. I can kind of walk you through that too, but you'll be able to see it once you put an item object in there, create you a folder of all your logos that you're going to use. And then I created another embedded data, and this says SADress, but it's actually school address is what that represents. And so once I've created all this item, and I could put phone number, whatever, it doesn't matter there, whatever item I want, and I can add more. Now I can create that. So every time that goes through a survey, somebody selects all good, it puts this information in the data of the survey. And then if they select all good middle, it would do the same thing here, and so forth and so on as we go all the way down through this enormous thing. But once you created one branch and one embed, you just duplicate right here, and it'll duplicate both items, and then you just edit the 3 things that you need to change for that school. A little bit of work on the front end, but I promise you it will reward you on the back end. So I'm going to go down through this so you can kind of see we have all the schools, and there's 20 something of them in our school system. Could be more than that, and it could even be something besides that. And then I could put an end of survey down here if I wanted to, but typically when it gets to the end, it's going to be the end anyway, that you can kind of see, because there's nothing else to do. But once we're done there, I'm going to go up here to the workflow, and we'll kind of look at it. This is the only have to have one email in this case. So I'm going to bring that email up so you can kind of see so survey response, we talked about that before, how to create that. So let me back up, but you just create a workflow, and it'll say create a new workflow. And in this case, it was a survey response, and it's any submitted response. And then I don't need a condition on this, even though you could have. I just wanted to send an email. Once they've submitted it, I'm good with it. There, I could have an approval process if I wanted to see it as an administrator. Obviously, that wouldn't be necessarily the best practice. But when I click on email, and as I edit this item, you can see that now at the top, I've brought in some pipe text, and now we go back to that embedded data. So there's that parent email from that student contact list, and then there's that teacher email. So we'll blind carbon that to the teacher so they can see what they actually sent, kind of have a record. We like that. And we put the from name. We need to make it something legit that's not out there. So we need to make sure that people recognize it as Putnam County Schools, which we did. And then we name it as a PCSS Student Spotlight. And that's what it is. So you can see I've kind of created a little logo. I did this in Canva. And Student Spotlight is something real simple, but really form field. I put a table together so it would kind of keep it compact and not all over the place. And you can see these are all different things here. And so this would have like the value of all the things that come in here. So this is actually the email stuff, and then down here's a logo and all of that. And so that's pretty much the gist of it. But these are all things that are brought in. I didn't necessarily put anything in front of them, but if when it pipes in the text, you can see that these are the items that I had in the other one, including the text that we had sent out as well. So hopefully that is a real simple tool, and one of my favorites. We that can be easily used and made. And then I'd say on the level of difficulty, I definitely put this on the low to middle to be able to do. So not really as difficult it is, but the double authenticator is kind of tricky, and the embedded branching data is kind of different than a lot of times you'll see. But definitely something you can use and learn from.